Hello and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dan Dankenbring. I am a trainer here at Motility Software. I am in our professional services department. And today's webinar, we are going to be taking a look at the batch reporting functionality that is built within our reporting module. Just so you know, we will be posting this session online on our website after probably sometime tomorrow, maybe later today. But if anyone at your organization was unable to join today's session, or if you want to review this session later, we will have that recording on our website probably later today, tomorrow at the latest. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. And we are just looking at one of our demo environments today. And like I said, today we're going to be focused on the batch reporting functionality within the software, which is handy if you ever need to save a report or have a report emailed to you on a daily, weekly basis. So let's go ahead and get started. I think we have everyone that's going to be joining. So from my main menu, I'm going to go ahead and open the reporting module. A module that you guys are all most likely pretty familiar with at this point. But something that you're going to notice at the top of your reporting screen is you're going to have the option to batch reports. So let's go ahead and let's find one that would be probably a good example of something we want to run on a daily or weekly basis. So up at the top, I have my favorites already saved. So I can go ahead and for today's webinar, we'll go ahead and use items sold as our option here. So you can either, open up your menu trees and find a report, or you can do what I'm doing right here, and we can use one of our reports that we've saved under our favorites up at the top. And just a quick recap, you can save any report in the software by right-clicking on it and selecting Add to Favorites. That will push it up top so that you don't have to, keep digging through these menu trees here and trying to find your report. It will always show up at the top. So let's go back to my items sold report here. And what I can do is I can basically apply any filters that I, want to apply to this report, just like I normally would. I'm going to go ahead and leave this pretty much blank for the most part. But just know that you can go ahead and add any filters that you want, and you can right-click and hit Save Report Filter Presets to lock in those filters if you want those filters to be applied to the report every single time you run it. But instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and apply a date range to this one, and I'm going to go ahead and use yesterday. So this is going to be a report that we probably want to check, see what items we've sold, and we want to look at this the day after. So once everything's been cashed out, I'll go ahead and run this report for the day prior. So what I'm going to do, like I said, I'm going to save my report filter presets, and it's going to give me a notification to let me know that that went through okay. So let's actually take a look at how we are going to be able to add this report to our batch of reports. So what I can do is I can right-click my report, and underneath your shortcut options, you're going to have your batching options. So let's take a look at those. I can add this report to a batch. So if I have an existing batch of reports that I want to include this with, I can select one of those, or I can hit Update Batch if it's already one that exists and I want to go ahead and make some changes to that. Or if this was something that was already on a batch, I could remove it from that. But pretty much what you're always going to select if this is a report that we have not batched out before, I'm going to go ahead and select Add to New Batch. And that's going to come up with this menu, and there's just a couple things that I need to add. So first thing, of course, is going to be the name. When I look at my list of batch reports, what do I want to call this? So I'll call this one my daily items sold report. And then the next is going to be action. So you actually have a few options as to how you want to receive the batch report. The first and probably the most common way to receive this would be via an email. So I can select email and I can give it an email address. So if I wanted it to go to training@motilitysoftware.com, I can type that in, but and I'm going to go ahead and copy this because in our example today, we are going to use email as the primary method, but let's take a look at the other options we have as well. So rather than having an email, I can select a printer that I want it to print out, every day or every week or whatever schedule I want. And if I have print selected, rather than entering a email address for me to receive this report, it's going to actually ask me to pick a printer. So which printer do I want this to print out on every time it's scheduled to go out? And this will basically just reference your list of printers that you have that are accessible from your server, and then you would just pick one, and that's really all there is to it. And you also have a third and final option, and that's going to be to save in folder. And if I select this option, I just have to enter the file path of the folder that I want it to save to. There's a couple ways to get that file path. You can create a folder on your desktop, for example, and then if you hit right click and select properties on that folder, you can copy your file location from there and then just copy it in here. And then when this batch report is scheduled to go out, the software will actually save it into that folder for you. It's a lot like if you were to select save one of your reports to your desktop. So if I were to right click and select, create desktop shortcut, rather than, just giving you the report filters, though, it's just going to give you a copy of that report with whatever filters you had selected for it. So let's get back to it. I'm going to select add to new batch. And again, we called this daily items sold report. And for my example, we're going to go ahead and select email just because that's probably the most common way that people run this. And it helps if you can spell, but there we go. So I've created a name for my batch of reports, and I've created an action, how I want to receive this report, and I want to receive this one via email, and I've entered the email address that I want to receive this at. So I can now hit save, and it's going to give me a notification that this report has been added to the new batch. So I'm about halfway done at this point. I can go ahead and hit OK here, and now I will actually want to schedule this report. So the next step is going to be to go up to batch, and I'm going to view my batch list. So we have quite a few here. So what I'm going to do, and what you have the option to do, is if you have quite a few of these, you can go ahead and actually filter by your email address to make it a little bit easier. I'm sure we're all familiar with our filter bars that we have throughout the software, but you're also going to be able to access those from this screen as well. So I'm going to go ahead and select my email address, and there it is, my daily items sold report. And there's my username, ddankenbring at my email address, ddankenbring@motilitysoftware.com. And now what I can do is I can hit the schedule task button to actually set my schedule for how often I want this report going out. And what it's going to do is it will open this screen for me, and it's going to select my daily items sold report. So now what I can do, and I'll minimize this down so it's a little bit easier to see. The first thing I'm going to have to do is create a name for it. I've already created this one in our software, so it already has a name, but the default name it's going to come up with is reports batch, and then it'll be the number, whatever number is next in line for this batch report. So you will have to name it again. So just make sure that you name it up top. And then the next thing that you're able to do is schedule your date and time that you want this to go out. So typically, whenever you're doing this for the first time, you'll set it ahead to tomorrow's date. So I'll go ahead and move this up to May 8th. And for my time, I said this is a daily items report. This is one that I want to take a look at every morning. So I'm going to have this one go out at 9 o'clock. And if I wanted to, I could have this only running for a set duration. But if you want this to be a report that is going out indefinitely, just go ahead and check the no end date checkbox here on the right-hand side. But for example, if I only wanted to receive this, let's say through the end of May here, I can set an end date if I want to. But if I don't want to, I can uncheck this, and by default, we'll go to no end date, so we'll keep running this indefinitely. Underneath, we have our unschedule button. So if this was something that I wanted to stop receiving, this is what you'll do. You will open up your batch from your schedule screen, and you'll check off unschedule if it's something that you don't want to go out anymore. The next thing that I have is going to be my recurrence pattern. And basically, you're going to have the option to, how many times a day or how many days do I want this to go out. So every single day, I can enter every one day, or I could have this go out on a weekly basis, and then I can set the date that it's going out on, probably Monday or Friday, I would assume. Or you can run it monthly, and you can select what date that you want it to generate for yourself. So those are your three options for your recurrence patterns. It's going to be daily, weekly, or monthly, and then you're just selecting, the frequency from there. But once this all looks good to me, I can go ahead and hit my save button. And when you hit save, it will go ahead and tell you the next date that it's going to be executed. So tomorrow at 9:01 a.m., this report will be emailed to that email address that I selected. And that's pretty much all there is to it. At this point, I can hit OK. And I can go ahead and jump out of this screen. You do have the ability to kind of test your email account if you need to, and that will send you that'll go ahead and send you a test email to just verify that the email address that you're planning on using is a valid email address. So that's pretty much all there is to it. I'm going to go ahead and I will do another batch email, and we'll kind of start it from beginning to end. I see that there were some people that joined when we were about halfway through this first one that we started. So we'll go ahead and create another one for the people that joined a little bit later. And basically, for anyone who is just joining now, today's session is covering batch reporting and how you're able to have email reports either delivered directly to your email address or printed out every morning or saved in a specific folder that you have created. So let's go ahead and we'll take it from the top, and we will create another batch to add to our list. So we'll switch things up a bit. We will use a accounting report for the second one. And we can go ahead and let's go ahead and use our daily operating report. That's a good one, probably one that we want to be running on a daily basis. And I can go ahead, I will switch this to May. And at this point, we can, or I can select posting quarter. So let's go ahead and do that. That's probably a better option for us so that we don't have to keep coming in and updating the batch and updating the settings on our report. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll do this one for quarter 2. And I'm going to go ahead and we'll select the summary version of this report. So once I have my filters set up on my report, all I need to do is right click, and I'll go ahead and actually add a department to our daily operating report as well. I'll go ahead and add finance. So once our report filters look good and we're happy with them, we can go ahead and right click our daily operating report or whatever report we have selected. And I'm going to go ahead and select add to new batch to create a new batch for this report. So I can go ahead and hit add to new batch, and it's going to give me this window, and this is where we're going to name our report. So I will say daily operating finance. And for those of you that weren't with us earlier, you do have the ability to select whether you want this emailed to yourself, whether you want this printing to a printer that you have on your server, or if you want it saved to a specific folder that you have on your server desktop. For today's purposes, we're going to do email, but just so you can see the other options that you have, you can select Save in Folder. And if you select this option, you will need to copy your file path of that folder into this folder location field down here. So you can either right-click on that folder and select your properties and copy your folder path that way. That's probably the easiest way of going about doing it. Your other option would be to print. And if I am going to be printing this, what I can do is I can select a printer name, and this will be the same list of printers that you have feeding in into the software. So it'll be that same list of printers that are connected and available to your server. And that's all there is to it. But let's go ahead and show email as our action, because that is typically how most people are choosing to use our batch reports. So I'm going to go ahead and select training at Motility Software.com. And what I can do is now I can go ahead and save. And it's going to give me a notification that I have added that report to our, I've added it to the new batch. And now if I select batch at the top of my reporting module, I can go ahead and select our second option, view batch list, to look at that one that I just created. So the easiest way to do this is to sort by your email address. So I selected training at Motility Software, and it's actually going to take whatever email address that you enter on that action field there. So I wanted to use daily operating report. Daily operating finance is what I created. So on this line, I'm going to select it and select schedule task. And this is going to be the actual screen where you're able to set how frequently you want this report going out, whether it's saving to a folder or if it's printing or if it is being emailed directly to you. So the first step that you have to do is change your name, and I will just go ahead and match it up with that name that we created. So daily operating finance. And the next option that you're going to have is when do I want this to start? So I will have a start date. If this is something that I want sent to me tomorrow, and if it's something I want to be sent every morning, I can go ahead and change my time of when this is going out as well. So I can go ahead, if I want to see this first thing every morning, I can go ahead and hit 8:00 a.m. for tomorrow. And if I wanted to have this end on a certain date, I can check off end by. So if I only wanted to, receive this through, I don't know, we could say the end of June, for example. I believe I have this one running for Q2. So if I want this to just run from tomorrow until the end of June, I can select an end date as well. And then the next thing I want to select is how frequently is this going to be recurring? How often is this going to be going out? So you have options for daily, weekly, and then you on weekly, you're actually going to select what day you want to receive the report. And then monthly, you can actually specify what day of the month you want to receive the report also. So, and this will actually reference your start date. I didn't mention that. So this will actually go out on the same date as your start date. So, it'll run on the 8th every month. But since this is a daily operating report, I'm going to go ahead and select daily. And I'm going to have this run once every single day. And now at this point, I can go ahead and hit save, and I can hit OK. And now this is successfully scheduled, and that's really all there is to it at this point. You can also start a new batch from this screen. I'm going to go ahead and recommend that you don't do that. In my opinion, it's always best to have your report filters in front of you, and you can right-click on the name of the report and, create a new batch that way. So that would be my recommendation to you if you plan on using this feature. It is rather nice, and it's much more streamlined now. We've made some significant updates to it, so it's much easier to get in, schedule it out, and pick how you want to receive that report. But that is pretty much all that I had for you guys this afternoon. I know this one was a little bit shorter than our usual ones. This is a nice short and sweet feature that we covered. And again, this will be posted on our website at motilitysoftware.com, most likely later today, but possibly tomorrow at the latest. But I appreciate everyone's time this afternoon. Thank you for joining the webinar, and have a nice rest of your day out there. Thank you.